and welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland Show. My name is Renata von Tscharner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy, and we are, as usual, going to talk about the Charles River, the wonderful Charles River that gives us so much pleasure here in Cambridge. And it's a river that the Charles River Conservancy has been working on since 2000, and we work from the harbour up to the Watertown Dam. We are a non-profit organization. We have about 40,000 supporters and volunteers who are associated with us and who join us in making the parklands more active, attractive and accessible, and that includes doing advocacy. So today I wanted to take you to an area down the river. Some people call it the last half mile, some people call it the lost half mile, and it's the area between the Museum of Science, which is the grey bridge on the left-hand side, and the Washington Street Bridge, which is being rebuilt. So this is a park that received $100 million of mitigation funds from the Big Dig. So all the green space in between the Museum of Science up to the Washington Street Bridge is mitigation land, and most of it has already been landscaped and has been improved. But many other things are happening, so I'm taking you for a tour in what is basically North Point Park, a wonderful new park that if you haven't been there, I highly recommend that you go and visit it. The star is where we will build a swim park. I will show that. And you also see in yellow the skate park. I will show you that. And the orange lines are connections, either existing or planned connections. So we'll start at the entrance to North Point Park, where you come from underneath the Green Line Viaduct, and we'll go along the water's edge. We'll cross the Charles on the lock, and then end up in North Station, where the Rose Kennedy Greenway starts. So let's get going with wonderful vegetation. The landscape architects of Lynch and Carr designed it, and in the background you see the Green Line Viaduct, which I hope one day will be illuminated. It's a lovely structure. Great plants along there, this island in the middle of the city. But it wasn't always like that you have this green space. You see here a picture from about more than 10 years ago, before that work started. North Point Park on the right of that loop originally was a trash transfer station for Cambridge. It's where the doctors went in. You would see the cleanup of these heaps of dirt that had to be removed. Some of them had asphalt in them. So a very costly cleanup effort, and you see that there were no islands yet, so they came later. But that's how the space looks today. Wonderful islands have been added. That was the work of Julie O'Brien and Carl Hagland, who were the planners for that. And it is this area here where we're also planning to build a swim park. A wonderful addition to the city to have this park in the middle, and particularly in East Cambridge, which has fewer green spaces and fewer swimming pools than any other part of Cambridge. So here is what we have in mind. That's part of a feasibility study that was done by Stantec as a pro bono gift to the Conservancy to see of how we could have a swim park here. This is a rendering, and it's very much just an idea, this boardwalk. And in fact, Paris has done something very similar on a little piece of water in the center of Paris, the Villette, a canal that flows into the Seine, and so that can serve as a model, and Paris has been very helpful in providing us with help for our park. We move on along the water's edge. You might see the duck tours going by, people strolling their dogs, and we have the Bascule Bridge as a beacon there to focus us. It's a beautiful park and it needs maintaining. The Charles River Conservancy has over 2,000 volunteers working a year with us. We have a full-time volunteer coordinator, and here is Symantec, who are not far away, and they help us to maintain that park. But we're working all the way up to Watertown Dam with our volunteers. There are also lovely spray decks, playgrounds there on the water, a wonderful place to take children from very small all the way up to about 10 years with water features. You go along the water's edge and you see a duck tour there going by, and you see what we call the Bascule Bridge, this brown metal structure which can go up when when the boat goes through. Normally it's down when the trains out of North Station come passing through. And the Bascule Bridge is connected to a pedestrian bridge which goes to the old Spalding, and we hope to that this pedestrian connection will work all the way to Cambridge, and that's in the work. As the MBTA replaces the bridge for the railroad, they will also add a pedestrian connection. Here we are from the air looking at the same area here with the Museum of Science on the right, and the bridge to the extreme left is the North Washington Street Bridge, and North Point Park is right on the water's edge. You see it's not a park yet. We're coming here to the skate park, which was also an old industrial site, had many contaminations to it, but we felt this was the perfect place to build a skate park. We didn't know that this would be a very complicated affair with a lot of environmental issues, legal issues, but the skate park was designed with 400 skaters, with the help from the Lynch Foundation, from the Boston Foundation, from Vans, and many other donors have helped to raise these over $5 million to create this skate park. You see on the right these kidney-shaped elements. These are bowls. The biggest one is 12 feet deep, can be used for professional competitions, and skateboarding will be an Olympic sport at the next Olympic Games. Then there are also street skate elements with ledges and stairs. So there's something for everybody. It's a 40,000 square foot skate park. And here you see the shadow, or the simulated shadow of the ramp. And you see that there are columns in the middle of the skate park. So we had to design the skate park with those columns in mind. Those columns support the ramp and they need to be serviced. So that required a very special approach to the design, and we had the help of professional skate park designers who were part, they're called Action Sport Design, and they were part of Stantec, and they did a lovely job. Here we have the opening day with 2,000 people in attendance. We have the Cambridge delegation. I think I see Mark McGovern and Tim Toomey there. And we had Nancy Schoen, the woman who did Make Way for Ducklings, who helped us raise money for the skate park, Boston Mayor Marty Walls. And then on the right, in his white hair, you have Peter Lynch and his grandchildren. So a very happy group and a very happy occasion when we opened that. We had Andy McDonald there, who did a trick, and standing on one hand, holding the skateboard with the other, quite amazing, and people watching him on this 12-foot bowl in the skate park. And we have also BMX bikers, inline skaters, all kind of different tricks can be played on this park. Alva, another veterans of the skate park world, and here is a view into the park that shows, looks down into the city. It's heavily used day and night, and I'm happy to report that the City of Cambridge has generously donated lights, and the DCR has provided matching funds of those $100,000 to install the lights. But because the lights are so big and heavy, we have to go back into what's called the dirty dirt. And so that means we have to reopen all the environmental permitting. And those of you who are in the construction business know what it means to open a new DEP permit. But we are getting there, and those lights are on their way, they're ordered, and the things are in progress. And even small kids, I've seen the small kids of 3 years, they go there with their scooters, a wonderful place, different ages, and also some girls, particularly with the Olympics coming up. I think more and more girls are getting into that sport. And here is the deep ramp where, like on a black slope, on a ski slope, you might want to only go there if you are a quite confident skateboarder. So the skate park is right to the left of this picture. We are standing on the North Bank Bridge. The North Bank Bridge is a very elegant bridge that goes underneath the Zaken Bridge, and it's a wonderful gift of the federal government. It was one of those shovel-ready projects that was part of the Recovery Act, and this park connects Cambridge to Charlestown. And it is a beautiful structure. Here is a watercolor rendering from below of this bridge. You see it twisting, it's very gracious. And underneath the bridge is where the Boston duck tours go into the water. So you have duck tours, you have trains, you have the freeway. It's really where the city is at its most attractive. And the skate park, there's going to be a swim park. There are going to be thousands of people living within a few hundred yards of here. So this is no longer the lost half mile. This is now a vibrant urban city space. I spoke of the connections. So you see here the yellow line at the top, the North Bank Bridge. So that is built. The South Bank Bridge, past Spalding, is now at 50% design, and the Bascule Bridge across the river is in an earlier design stage, but all of those 3 bridges will be open, and they are paid for by the mitigation fund of the Big Dig, and so this area will be much better connected. This show is not about what's happening in North Point Park or in North Point. So there are other shows about what EF is doing on North Point and what DIFCO West is doing, what is now called Cambridge Crossing, that used to be North Point. So join us for other shows at some other time, or go to the YouTube, because all these shows of the Charles River Conservancy and about the Charles River Parklands are on YouTube. There are shows, about swimming, there are shows about bicycling, about the volunteers. There are well over 100 shows also about our advocacy for the I-90. So whatever your interest is about the Charles River or the Parklands, you can find that by YouTube, and you go to Charles River Conservancy and you find it. So you saw this picture from underneath the Zaken Bridge. And in fact, the underbelly, as I call it, of the Zaken Bridge is a very elegant space as well. We, of course, know this one. This is a picture of Peter van der Walker. It's a beautiful bridge. It has become the kind of symbol of Boston. But underneath is a wonderful park. This is the Revere Park, and just to orient yourself, this is the pale, this is the, below the pale green park is this round park on the right. That's Revere Park, and we're about to cross the locks. And there are lovely mosaics in there, and now we're going to cross the locks. And they're unfortunately quite narrow, but it's a great way to go over to Boston. And you have to push your bike, and it's very narrow. And there's a group that has come up with a plan of how to make that more attractive. It's called, the group is called Untitled, and they propose what's called the Lock Park. And they think that it's possible to make that pathway 12 foot wide, so that would be much easier for bicycles to cross. And we sure hope that this plan can be implemented, because right now many people use that path, but in fact it's almost impossible for two bicycles, even if you push the bicycle, to cross each other. Again, this is a wonderful, vibrant place with all the boats going through. You can see there are 3 different locks. It depends on the size of the boats that go through, and sometimes the water in the harbor is higher, and when there is water coming down the river, pumps in that building on the left are capable of pumping the water against the high tide so that the Charles River wouldn't flood. So if you haven't walked the lock, it's a very amusing place. It's also a great way to go to the Rose Kennedy Greenway, or which is on the right, or on the left hand side through Revere Park. You can go to the Harbor Walk, and then the Harbor Walk will lead you through Charlestown, the wonderful new Spalding building. A lot of beautiful things happening there. Here is this narrow existing path. And then when you land on the other side of the Bascule Bridge, we are now on the Boston side, you see it's much, much lower, but again a great civic space that I hope will be animated and can be used for activities. It's a great place for concerts because we are underneath a freeway. So that space is waiting to be animated, but it needs still better connections. So let me show you where we are. I have a little pointer here. So we have just crossed those locks here. We are now underneath the Bascule Bridge on the Boston side. And we will now go up there and go towards the Rose Kennedy Greenway. So we walked from the area here where you get into North Point Park underneath the Green Line Viaduct. We walked along the water's edge, looked at the swim park, at these lovely islands. There were the playgrounds. We looked at the Bascule Bridge here, and we looked at the skate park, went underneath the bridge, through Revere Park, over the canal, over the dam, and we are now on the Boston side. So this effort is an amazing planning accomplishment that has taken many, many years. It's really part of the Big Dig, because as part of the Big Dig there were environmental mitigation requirements, and thanks to John de Villars, who was at the time the EPA representative of the region, he requested that a mitigation of $100 million be allocated for that park because of the impact that the Bascule Bridge had on the river. So we are lucky that the DCR, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, worked on this plan diligently, and and it was also in close partnership with Mass DOT. So for instance, the site of the skate park was a consolidation of Mass Highway and Mass Pike land that was consolidated under the Mass DOT. Then it had to be transferred to Mass DOT, from Mass DOT to DCR. So you can imagine all the legal processes involved, and we were very grateful for the pro bono help of Wilmer Hale. It was well over $1 million of legal fees just for the skate park. So planning, it seems slow often, but if you look at the results, it is quite extraordinary. Out of an industrial waste site, no man's land, it used to be a trash transfer station for Cambridge. We have now wonderful parks. It's a campus for EF. It's a wonderful place for everybody to go, for the skateboarders, for the Cambridge residents, for the whole region, and eventually for the swim park as well. So we have now landed on the Boston side. You see the Boston Garden on the left. We're looking down onto the Bascule Bridge, and we have now landed in what's called the Portal Park, and it's the last parcel of the Rose Kennedy Greenway. In our back you would find other parcels of the Rose Kennedy Greenway, and which is another wonderful addition as a result of the big dig. So I hope that you will go and visit that area. And if you're interested in all these planning struggles, there is the book for you. It's called Inventing the Charles River, written by Carl Haglund, who is still at the DCR as the planner, working on the South Bank Bridge, working on the other elements on the DCR maintenance facility. And so that was his PhD thesis when he was at MIT, and he describes all the struggles that this river has seen when there were plans to build an elevated highway right in the middle of the river. That didn't happen, but they put the I-90 along the river, and as we know, as the I-90 needs some rebuilding of its viaducts, so there are still struggles between transportation and park and bicycling, and we are advocates for that, and we appreciate all the support that we get from our people who support us and our fellow advocates. So in case you just joined us, you can see this show on YouTube, and you can find it also on the Charles River Conservancy website. And my name is Renata von Tscharner, and it's a pleasure to present these areas of Boston to you, because this river is such a precious resource that we have. It belongs to all of us. It's all state-owned land, although much of it is in Cambridge, but it's all the shoreline and the parks along the river are state land. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope we will hear from you either as a volunteer or as a supporter, as a fellow advocate. We always appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.